Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Marty Kotler. I want to thank you for attending this webinar on laser therapy. Just a few things before we get started. We're going to go for about 45 minutes, give or take a few minutes. Then we're going to open it up to questions and answers. You should have a question and answer panel on your computer screen. Typically it's on the right side in the top right corner. And that's where you can type in your questions and hit send. I'd love to be able to open up the line so we can all hear each other and talk with each other, but it just doesn't seem to work out. There's too much background noise. So you're all in listen-only mode. So if you have a question, just type it in and hit send, and then I will answer the questions on a first-come, first-served basis. If you think of a question after the webinar, no worries. Just email your questions to info@targetcoding.com. A few other things. Let's see, I'm just going to switch the slides right now. Well, before we get started, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Dr. Marty Kotler. I'm the president of Target Coding. Some of you may know who I am. For those of you that do not, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a chiropractor. I practiced for 16 years. My first 12 years, I was chiro only, and then 4 years, I was multi-specialty. I'm certified in CPT coding, certified in healthcare compliance. I write articles to a lot of the major chiropractic journals and publications. Member of the ACA, American Academy of Professional Coders. I speak for the Coding Institute, Parker Seminars, Foot Levelers, and I'm a guest speaker at many national and state association conventions. By the way, those of you listening to this presentation, if you are a member of your state association that's looking for a speaker, let me know. We offer a lot of different topics on billing, coding, and documentation. And typically I can get a sponsor, so there's no cost to the association. So anybody interested in that, let us know. My calendar is pretty full for the rest of this year, but maybe we could work something out for next year. Okay, so let's get right into it. Here we go, laser therapy. According to chiropractic economics, 30% of the profession uses laser therapy. That's a big chunk of the profession. So, and it appears to be more and more popular as time goes on. Every time I pick up a chiropractic journal like Chiropractic Economics or Dynamic Chiropractic, I think there are more companies selling lasers than any other device in our profession. So I guess it's working and very popular. Here are some of the most common conditions treated by laser therapy. Tendinitis, sprains, strains, carpal tunnel syndrome, bursitis, plantar fasciitis, restricted range of motion, edema, effusion, inflammation, muscle spasm, myofasciitis, fibromyalgia, low back pain, neck pain, TMJ problems, ligament injuries, muscle contusions, disc trauma. Again, these are just some of the things that I've gathered regarding laser therapy. As far as a business decision, I think it's an excellent business move in today's healthcare environment where insurance companies seem to be squeezing reimbursement more and more, not just to chiropractors. I have friends that are podiatrists, dentists, physical therapists, and insurance companies are squeezing everybody. So could this be a good business move? Absolutely. You want to have a nice mix of types of patients coming into your practice. Some insurance, some Medicare, some cash, some personal injury. It's nice to have a mix and not have all your eggs in one basket. So as far as a good business move, I think it's excellent. Adds another treatment option. It could actually add a whole nother department to your practice. You'll be able to see more patients. You'll be able to market that you can perform services on certain conditions that you couldn't do just as a chiropractic practice only. I think it's fun. I think it's exciting. I think it's an easy type of service to incorporate, and you see tremendous results. I think saying that you have a laser therapy shows patients that you're high-tech, and they love it. So I think it's an excellent business move. I think it's also a way for you to develop a niche in your community so you can become the leading authority on certain conditions. It's painless, it's drugless, it could prevent surgeries. You may start getting referrals from medical doctors specifically for laser. Now, as far as the most studied application of laser therapy in my research, it's carpal tunnel syndrome. Carpal tunnel syndrome seems to be the most commonly treated condition and most researched as far as laser therapy goes. Now, there's ICD-10 is coming soon next year, October 1st, 2014. I looked it up. It's a Wednesday. So Wednesday, October 1st, 2014 is when ICD-10 will become mandatory. So on Tuesday, September 30th, 2014, you will say bye-bye to ICD-9 codes. So the ICD-10 codes, I just thought I'd throw in a few here. The ICD-10 codes for carpal tunnel syndrome on the right side is G5601. Carpal tunnel syndrome on the left side is G56.02. So you will see once we get closer to ICD-10, they've become very specific. The amount of diagnosis codes has increased almost 5 times the amount we have for ICD-9. And in the beginning, it's going to be confusing. You're going to need to do a few things to get prepared for ICD-10. But when the dust settles, I think it's going to be very good for chiropractic. You're going to be able to report specific diagnosis codes, which I think in turn will get you paid for more visits. So I thought I'd give you a little preview there by giving you the ICD-10 codes for carpal tunnel syndrome. Right now, the ICD-9 code for carpal tunnel syndrome doesn't specify right side and left side. And as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of studies that have been done on laser therapy, a lot of books and articles. I've grabbed a few here. I'm throwing one up here on the screen. This is the improvement of pain and disability in elderly patients with osteoarthritis using laser therapy. So there's one article. If anybody would like these articles that I'm throwing up here to show you, just send an email to amy@targetcoding.com. That's AMY@targetcoding.com, and she can send you these research articles that I've gathered. Here's one for rheumatoid arthritis, double-blind study on the treatment of neuralgia. So a whole bunch of nice studies here. Now, before we get into the billing, the coding, the real specific information regarding getting paid, I want to bring on a guest speaker. His name is Jason Smith from LiteCure Medical, which makes the LightForce laser. Now, he's going to go over a little bit about the history of laser, how it works, some of the evidence-based information on lasers and laser protocols. So I'd like to introduce him and bring him on right now. Jason, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Marty. It's good to be here. You can go ahead and advance to the next slide. I think that's the one with my mugshot. See that come up here. All right. And we can actually just skip forward to the next one. My intention here, and again, thanks for having me on. I want to take a few minutes just to give some basic background on laser therapy. I know it's a technology that's becoming very popular in chiropractic medicine, and I think everybody has varying degrees of experience and understanding. So I'm just going to let some things go here that'll kind of set the groundwork, and then Marty, you're going to come back in and tell everybody how to get paid for it. So going ahead here to the history of laser therapy. Laser's been around for quite a while, and the first observed laser stimulation was actually in 1968 with Andre Messer. Many people have probably heard the story. He actually originally was trying to prove that laser would cause cancer. There were some concerns after the lasers were first developed that would happen, so they took a population of laboratory animals, lab rats, shaved their backs, treated one group with laser and one did not receive the treatment. They, of course, were expecting very quick development of terribly invasive tumors, and what actually ended up happening was that the laser-treated group, the hair grew back faster. There was no cancer in either group, and the only thing that happened was the stimulation of hair growth. So, you know, that first observation led to the coining of the term photobiostimulation or laser stimulation. Now, you know, through research and application of the technique through into the 80s, 90s, and into this millennium, we now call it photobiomodulation because it's very clear that you can stimulate certain processes if you're talking about cellular metabolism, you know, cell migration speeds, cell division, things like that. But you can also inhibit processes. For example, you can inhibit inflammatory pathways, and you can inhibit pain. So I think we've come a long way since Mestre in '68 in the development of the technology. And then more recently, laser was very popular, or started to be popular in Europe in the '90s. It became popular in the U.S. after FDA clearance in the early 2000s. Before that, it was only folks who had gone to Europe and brought them back in their luggage. But the FDA cleared a low-powered laser in 2002, and then the higher class 4 lasers were originally cleared in 2003, and it's really been a hockey stick growth curve since then. Next slide. The clinical applications that are most commonly treated for laser revolve around the indication that the technology has with the FDA. So the indication for treatment is for treating pain, inflammation, and for the temporary increase of microcirculation. Now, realistically, pain is a nice general indication. You can, it's rare that someone comes to a clinic for something other than pain or something related to pain. So everything from arthritis, neck pains, back pains, all kinds of musculoskeletal maladies, neuropathies, neuropathic pain, also pain related to post-surgical rehabilitation. So it's a really nice general indication that hits a lot of the key, it basically falls right into the wheelhouse of the chiropractic community. Next slide. So this is one of my favorite little cartoons here. So basically, you've got a technology. We've seen some of the fundamentals. We know it has an FDA indication, and we can use it for these certain conditions. But really, how does it work? Because I think we'd all agree that this is not a situation that you want to have to be in here. Trust me, I'm a doctor. I'm going to use this laser therapy device on you. So the next things I'm going to talk about are really going to be the justification for the use of this therapy. Next slide. So this is first of all, I'll tell you, this is the last bit of cell biology I'm going to throw at you today. But just to get a fundamental understanding of the technology, the light comes into the cell, as you can kind of see there at the upper left. And the major absorber of the light in the cell is going to be in the mitochondria. It's the molecule known as cytochrome C oxidase. There are other absorbers in the tissue, absolutely. Things like melanin and hemoglobin and things like that absorb. All of the light that's absorbed by those molecules is just radiated away as heat. But the key to the biochemical activity of the light is in this mitochondrial pathway. So really there are multiple mechanisms that have been proposed and lots of data to support all of them. Is now available. But so the three pathways, there's ATP production, which is generally related to the enhancement of the cellular metabolism in the mitochondria. So energy production, ATP is the triphosphorylated molecule that essentially transports energy within the cell. So that leads to enhanced cellular function, signaling, transmission to the nucleus, and generally regulation of different growth factors, inflammatory markers, and things of that nature. You also can have signaling related to NO, and that can be either intracellular or extracellular, relating to everything from cell signaling, also in inflammatory pathways and microcirculation. And then there's also the reactive oxygen species pathway. So that is a bit more of an inhibitory pathway, can be stimulating. It really depends on the dosing. And at times these signaling pathways work in concert, and other times they work against each other. So it really, it's an amazingly complex set of mechanisms, but very well characterized in the literature. So next slide. So we're going to really get into some of the evidence. So we've gotten, a lot of the work there in the cell biology is very specific. How does it really translate into clinical practice? So I wanted to start off here just with where we are today as far as the endorsement of the technology. So as of right now, 3 major medical societies have all endorsed the therapy. So these are clinical organizations, made up of doctors. These are the groups that are, lobbying to payers and things like that for coverage of treatments. So first off here, the American Physical Therapy Association, their orthopedic section has endorsed the use of laser therapy for Achilles tendinopathy. So you can go to the next slide. But this is, clearly a win for the technology, and we continue to see benefits in Achilles tendinopathy and really in tendon injuries in general. There are a couple of papers that have recently been produced and another couple that are coming out this year, really starting to drive home the application and really the evidence-based medicine for laser in those tendon injuries. The next one here is the World Health Organization has endorsed laser therapy for the treatment of neck pain, and this is related to their bone and joint decade, and the last decade here. And this is closely related to some of the work that was done by Roberta Chow and the paper that was published in The Lancet in 2009, also on neck pain, was really the major contributor of evidence for this particular endorsement. Next slide. And the final slide we're going to see here, this is actually my favorite of the endorsements. It's the International Association for the Study of Pain. So this is a group that, I've been to this meeting a couple of times now, and it's overwhelmingly a pharmaceutical meeting. So it's very clear when you walk in the door that Merck and Pfizer are paying the bills at this place. They've got these huge booths, selling all their pain meds, and yet even this pharmaceutically driven society has endorsed laser therapy for treating myofascial pain. So I think that's, it's very clear that even some of these organizations that are less than friendly to alternative therapies are very interested in the use and implementation of laser therapy moving forward. Go ahead to the next slide, Marty. So I'll go through a little more of the literature here. Again, going back to the article by Roberta Chow, and this is really a seminal article in the field, not only for the conclusions, but also the method of delivery. So this is The Lancet, clearly one of the top medical journals. Roberta Chow spent quite a bit of time working with the editors, tweaking and jumping through the hoops that they wanted her to jump through to get this published. I think she did an excellent job, and the conclusions are very powerful. It's a large meta-analysis. She looked at, I believe it was 16 or 18 randomized studies. I can't read the small print there, but finding that laser therapy had immediate benefit and had benefit out to 28 weeks in neck pain. And the other interesting thing is the finding we have down here in the box at the bottom is that really most statistical heterogeneity or the variability between the studies disappeared when they excluded trials with small doses or flaws in the treatment procedure, which is interesting. And I think you would understand in an evolving technology that would be the case. And that we'll have some discussion a little bit later on what we think the reasons for that are. But next slide. So again, here we're going to go into these variable results, not only in the Chow article, but also Jan Bjordal, who's very well known in the sports medicine community in Europe. He did a meta-analysis and systemic review back in 2008, looking at tendinitis with laser. And interestingly, of the 18 randomized controlled trials he looked at, 13 of them were positive, and he actually noticed, looking at the entire literature, there was actually a publication bias for negative trials, which was interesting. I always felt like we're fighting an uphill battle, but it was interesting to see Jan get out there and actually prove it. Margaret Nazer, getting back to the carpal tunnel application we discussed earlier, she had a review on carpal tunnel syndrome, found 5 of the 7 studies were positive, and showed 84% improvement in patients with mild to moderate carpal tunnel. And interestingly also, in the medical environment we're in now, she also found a significant cost savings, so somewhere on the order of $5,000 per patient to the system. So I think, again, the environment we're in now, everyone's looking to save money on the whole. So by saving these patients from having to go to much more invasive procedures, which in the end weren't necessarily any more effective, they were able to significantly reduce the costs associated with patient care. And then again, the Chow study that came out in 2009 with the 16 randomized controlled trials finding for the benefit of laser therapy for neck pain. So next slide. So we're going to go into really why we think that variability may exist. Because if you just talk about dosing, there's a fairly reasonable agreement. Most laser manufacturers and clinicians would agree that the dosing that you're shooting for with your laser is going to be anywhere between 4 and 10 joules per centimeter squared, maybe a little bit more, depending on the condition and how deep you need to get. But that's not a large variability, really, for a physical modality like this. It definitely doesn't explain any of the differences in the results that have been observed. But I think when you get down to how is the treatment really applied, I think that becomes the key. And if you look at our little picture here with she looks like she has the measles or something, but we're trying to represent here the treatment areas or point application techniques that are very common with some of the lower powered lasers. You can see if you're treating carpal tunnel or you're treating epicondylitis, there are certain points that if you're trying to address maybe acupuncture points, maybe you're trying to hit trigger points or insertion points, or you're trying to hit nerves specifically where there's pain, you're going to be treating these little spots. And you can imagine, many of you I'm sure have practices with multiple people potentially seeing patients from day to day. The variability from one practitioner to the next or to a technician can be significantly high. And I think that, more than anything, contributes to this variability in the results in the studies that have been seen in the literature. So next slide. So the thing that LiteForce has really moved towards is more of instead of moving to a point technique, really doing a treatment of a large area. And to do that, you need a more powerful device. Because instead of putting the energy into a couple of spots, you're treating over a large area. As the area increases, the time is either going to increase or the power you need is going to increase. And the solution with the LiteForce lasers has been the increase of the power. So you can see for a typical low back arthritis, the treatment energy you're going to be recommended in that area is going to be somewhere around 6,000 joules. And using a 10-watt laser, you can do that in 10 minutes, which is still a reasonable treatment time. With some of the other lasers out there that are used for point treatments, you theoretically could deliver 6,000 joules, but it would take you all day. So I think that the real revolutionary component to this is the ability to deliver the therapeutic dose over a large area to make your results more consistent and still do that in a reasonable amount of time. Next slide. So I think I kind of scooped myself here, but with the higher power class 4, you can definitely treat at these proven doses over a large area in a relevant treatment time, and again, reduce your variability. And this is something that we're seeing as studies start to come out, as the results start to come out with these class 4 lasers, response rates that are much higher than what people are typically seeing with some of the lower powered lasers. And I'm sure several of the people on the call here have experience with this as well. But it's really amazing, and there's a study actually that's just been accepted for publication, should be coming out later this year. It was a randomized controlled trial done at the University of Toledo for lateral epicondylitis, and they actually had a 100% response rate, and the benefits were maintained out to 1-year follow-up with the patient population. And this was actually a study. It was interesting because the ethics committee, or the IRB, at the university actually required us to use a crossover design. So if after 3 months, at the 3-month analysis, if there was a significant difference between the groups, we had to offer the therapy to the control group. Which it makes sense. It's almost unethical at that point to not offer the therapy to that group at no cost as a benefit of their participation in the study. so it's actually very interesting because we essentially had a trailing treatment group. So both groups responded very well. It was basically a mirror image of the response going into the second group. And again, everyone responded and held that out to a year. So it's very good. And again, that'll be coming out in the next couple of months here. So next slide. So I think the question that's going to come up quite a bit then is how do you choose the right laser for your practice? I think more and more the question isn't whether or not you should have a laser. I already mentioned earlier that the usage of laser therapy in chiropractic medicine is on the rise, up to 30%. And if you look at that and say, well, how many of those folks are even interested in using any modality? So you're probably eliminating several anyway. It's definitely on the rise. But the question really becomes, since we work with several of the colleges, the chiropractic colleges, I know that there isn't a lot being taught on laser therapy. So you want to avoid the situation where you're kind of at the mercy of the folks that are coming in the door with the latest and greatest. So we've got a couple of things on the next slide here that you should really look for, but seems like a never-ending supply of lasers that are available right now. So my first recommendation is definitely do your homework, and that means not only looking at the information you get from a sales rep or even listening to this webinar, but do some research for yourself. Talk to your friends and colleagues about what they're using and the success they're having, and really try to come into it with as much information as you can. And then secondly, I think as the industry has grown, you really need to know and understand the company that you're setting up with. At LiteCure and LiteForce, the relationship with the customer has always been something that's been very critical, and we've been around for 7-8 years now, supporting customers, with upgrades and information technology, webinars. That's not the norm necessarily in the industry, so you want to make sure you're going to get support after the laser gets dropped off in your office. And also, I would say that I would be skeptical of too much complexity. I think laser therapy in general, for it to be effective in your practice, you're going to have to reduce it to practice, right? You're going to have to be able to treat with some pretty standard protocols, and as you gain more experience, of course, you can vary your treatment techniques. But I think when people start talking too much about different aspects of the therapy with lots of certainty, it's generally most of that is not supported in the literature, and it's just kind of people trying to differentiate themselves with really marketing hype rather than anything related to the instrument or the technology. And also, I would demand research that relates to your device. There are several companies out there that will hand you a whole binder full of information, and it's some of it's from the 70s and some of it's from last year, and none of it has anything to do with the laser that they're bringing in from who knows where and handing to you. So just make sure that you can understand from the connection between the work that's given to you and the treatments that you're going to be administering in the office. And I see that garage sale sign up there. I don't know if there are still companies. I'm sure there are, but for a good while there were several companies that were essentially running out of a garage, right? So folks are importing a laser from, again, who knows where, slapping a label on it and shipping it out, and generally those guys tend to pop up and then go away, and even if they can help you with service, it's going to take several months because they've got to ship it back where it came from. So you want to work with somebody who is a substantial entity in the field and has all the resources you're going to need moving forward. So next slide. And I think our last part here is a little bit on incorporation of the laser into your practice. And this is some stuff I got from from the marketing department here at LiteForce. And essentially, the keys really are there are many, right? So there's first of all, the implementation is training your staff, making sure everyone understands and communicate on it, on the laser therapy device, and making sure the patients get the information. So patient education and resources. So one of the things that the LiteForce team has done is put this together. They call it the LiteForce Compass. Comes with an iPad. It has lots of digital resources, whether it's ads you can run, scripts to use when you take phone calls, or scripts for a radio commercial, lots of marketing collateral, really the things that round out the experience, so it's not just a device that's dropped off in your office. And these are things that we could answer, or the team here could answer a lot more questions about moving forward, but it's definitely the whole package that you need to incorporate laser in your practice. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Marty to tell you a little bit about how you get paid for it, and then we can take some questions at the end.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jason. Excellent presentation. I see we have a whole bunch of questions that have come in, so hang in there and we'll get back to you after I'm finished with my portion. So now let's get into the billing, the coding, and how to get paid. So here we go. In general, for laser therapy, there are two codes. 97039, which is considered an unlisted modality. So at the present time, there is no specific CPT code for laser therapy. Now, some of you may be saying, oh, I wish there was one. Some of you are happy that there isn't one. So just let me share with you right now, there's no specific CPT code for laser therapy. There is a HCPCS code, which I'm going to share with you in a minute. So if you're seeing a patient, and let's say I'm just throwing out a number, you're charging your cash patients $50 for a laser therapy session. Now you would like there to be a CPT code for laser therapy. So let's say down the road, I don't see it happening for at least 5 years, but maybe down the road the AMA committee, CPT coding committee, says, all right, it's time, we need a CPT code for laser therapy, and it comes out and it's CPT code 12345. I'm just throwing out a number. And the RVU and the payable rate is $30. Well, you've been getting 50 cash. Now you're in network with this particular plan and they only pay 30. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, be careful what you wish for. Maybe we're better off without a CPT code. I don't know. Time will tell. So when you're reporting an unlisted service to an insurance company, you should be providing them with a procedure report. This procedure report is going to provide the adequate description of the nature of the problem, the need for the procedure, the time, effort. I'm going to be providing you with a sample procedure report. I'm going to show you what that looks like, so hang in there. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. The other code that I recommend you bill as a possibility to get paid is a HCPCS code. HCPCS codes are codes that start with a letter followed by 4 numbers. So the HCPCS code for laser is S8948. This is the application of a modality, 1 or more areas, low-level laser therapy each 15 minutes. So here's a situation where we have a specific description. It says laser therapy in the description, the definition of S8948. So this may be a good code to bill. Now here's something that you should be aware of. Sometimes you have to bill just to satisfy the patient, right? You ever have a patient come in and you do something and you say, well, Mrs. Jones or Mr. Jones, insurance doesn't cover that, that's $50. The patient says, all right, here's $50. They have insurance. They'd like their insurance to pay for everything, right? We would too. Those of us that have health insurance, we would like our health insurance to cover everything. So patient pays you $50. Then, I don't know, a bug gets in their head and they come back a couple of weeks later and go, you know what, doc, or to your staff, can you send that into my insurance? And you say, no, we don't, it's not covered by your insurance. And the patient says, no, I understand that it's not covered. I still want you to send in the bill. So sometimes You need to bill the patient's insurance company just to satisfy the patient, just to get a compliant, proper denial. I know that sounds funny, but sometimes you have to bill just to get a proper denial. This way, you could satisfy the patient, and then you can come back to the patient and say, you see, I told you, Mr. Jones, it's not covered, but at least you made the patient happy. But cash or insurance, you need to show medical necessity. Just because you're making laser a cash-based service doesn't mean you don't have to document what's going on. So you have to do an exam. You have to come up with a treatment plan. Your SOAP notes should include the clinical rationale for performing the services, what your goals are for the care. So here's, again, a little bit more of an expanded description here of CPT code 97039, unlisted modality. Specify type and time if constant attendance. If used as a constant attendance modality, document the amount of time spent and the anatomic location where the laser therapy was applied. See, you know, most of the time when I talk to providers around the country, and I speak to thousands of chiropractors every year, they will say, you know, well, I'm usually talking about how to get paid properly, how to document properly regarding insurance. That's one aspect of what I teach. The other two things that I teach is to prevent state board issues and risk management. So you can have a very happy cash patient coming in, getting laser. You don't have to deal with insurance, right? You're getting paid for laser. Now this patient, for some reason, becomes unhappy and files a complaint against you with the chiropractic state board which you practice. Now what do you need to do? You're going to need to give up the documentation. You're going to need to show the state board all your notes on that patient. So if you don't have a game plan, if you don't have a treatment plan, if you don't have the strategy as to why, the clinical rationale as to why you're doing laser, you can get in trouble. I'm working with a few chiropractors right now that are in big trouble with the state board because patients filed complaints against them. But what's interesting is the doctor is being hassled by the state board for nothing to do with the patient's complaint. They discovered other things that the doctor was doing wrong while looking at the notes. So documentation is very important nowadays more than ever with Obamacare. Audits are increasing, so you want to make sure you're documenting properly even for your cash patients. Here's the other code that I was referring to, S8948. This is a HCPCS code that was created by Blue Cross Blue Shield. HCPCS stands for Healthcare Common Procedure Coding System, so there weren't enough CPT codes out there to report everything that providers do, so we had this other level of HCPCS codes that were created. There's the S8948. So what I recommend, staff members, we have any staff members listening to this presentation, when you call to verify coverage, you should ask if laser is covered. Ask them if S8948 is covered or 97039. Another thing you should do is, if you're in network with any plan, check your provider agreement on their, on their policy on laser therapy. You want to call to verify coverage and obtain the insurance company's guidelines on laser therapy prior to billing the insurance. Again, you may need to bill just for denial purposes. If you do not use the right code just to get denied properly, the EOB can come back that it's the provider's liability, responsibility, and the patient should not be billed. That stinks. You could have a very happy, satisfied patient coming into your practice. You're doing the laser therapy. They're paying you cash. They're thrilled. Now they say, can you please bill my insurance company? Again, you say it's not going to get paid. They go, I don't care. Just send it in. Now you send it in with the wrong procedure code, the wrong diagnosis code. The EOB comes back saying, patient may not be billed. Now this happy, friendly patient that has paid you $500, $1,000 says, I want my money back. Look, my insurance company said that I should not have paid you. So sometimes you have to bill just to get the proper denial. So I've broken down the billing of laser into 9 categories. This should cover every possible scenario. Every single man, woman, and child that comes into your practice will fall into one of these 9 categories. So the first one is General insurance out of network. So patient comes in. Now, I didn't talk to Jason about this before the webinar, but I didn't know, what particular protocols are recommended along with laser, because, most of the docs that I work with, when they do a laser treatment on a patient, they're doing more than just laser. Some of my clients, patient comes in, gets laser, and leaves. Nothing else is done. But most of the docs that I work with, when a patient comes in, they're getting laser, and they're also getting a chiropractic adjustment. And sometimes patients are also getting therapeutic exercises or other services. So when a patient comes in out of network, right, you're out of network, general insurance, you can collect your full fee for everything you do up front if you would like. If you don't want to collect the full fee for the covered services, remember, let's consider the adjustment a covered service. Even though you're out of network, we're going to call that a covered service. And let's say you're doing therapeutic exercises too. So those two services are probably going to be covered. Even though you're out of network, they're going to be covered. So you could accept assignment on those two services, but you should collect your full fee for the laser, because that's probably not going to be covered. Now, if the patient asks you to send in the claim for the laser therapy, then you're going to want to use that procedure report, assuming you're billing 97039. Make sure the patient understands your insurance policy. You should have a financial policy that the patients fill out. Members of Target Coding listening to this presentation, you've received our sample financial policies, so you should be on top of that. Now, we don't recommend waiving copays or coinsurance or deductibles. You must make an attempt to collect all the copays, all the coinsurance, all the deductibles. Now, let's go to category 2. General insurance, but now you're in network. So you happen to be a participating provider. Let's say, you're in United Healthcare, and then you have to go through Optum Health, or you're in network with Cigna or Blue Cross Blue Shield, and you're going through American Specialty Health Network. So now you're in network. Well, for the covered services, what are you going to do? You could only collect the copay. You cannot collect the full fee. You could only collect the copay for the covered services. For the non-covered service, like the laser therapy, you need to find out what your in-network policy agreement, your contract states. Most of the time, you can collect from the patient for the non-covered services. But, again, remember, what the policies are, what your policies are. Sometimes you have a patient prepay for multiple visits, and we're going to get into prepays in a few seconds. Well, in a few minutes, we're going to talk about prepays. So make sure it's compliant in your state. Now, if you're in network with a plan, this is rare, but you may come across a situation where you're in network with a plan, and this plan says you cannot collect any money from the patient besides the copay, regardless of what you do. Very restrictive, but I have seen that intermittently, so be careful with that. This is a very important decision. If you're in network and you cannot collect cash for the non-covered services, then you may want to consider becoming out of network. Now, please, let me just clarify this. I'm not telling you to become an in-network provider. I'm not telling you to drop out of any plans. That's a decision that you have to make, but if it's very restrictive, you should think about it. So, very important decision. Don't just drop out of any plan without really looking into it. Okay, next, category 3, Blue Cross Blue Shield. You are now in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Well, again, you could only collect the copay for the covered services. You can collect, most of the time, cash. In network, you would not be able to collect more than just the copay for the covered services. For the laser, you could probably collect cash for that. But here's the thing. Be careful if you're, in network, it's a little easier. You may need to bill just to get denied. Some patients, again, they're in network Blue Cross Blue Shield. They want you to bill just for a proper denial. So with Blue Cross Blue Shield, you're probably going to use S8948. S8948 because Blue Cross Blue Shield invented that code, so you're going to want to use that for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Next is Blue Cross Blue Shield out of network. Okay, there's more flexibility, there's more freedom. When you're out of network, you can have the patient pay you for everything at the time of service when you're out of network. Or you can collect just the fee for the laser and accept assignment. On the other covered services, again, you're going to use S8948. Now, just be careful. When you're out of network with Blue Cross Blue Shield, the check may go to the patient, so you should have some policies on that. Again, target coding members, you've received my form on when the check goes to the patient, so please make sure you're using that to ensure that you will not have a patient get the check and just leave. You know, you ever have a patient, they get the check, all of a sudden they play dumb. This was a very happy, seemed like a very smart patient. They were coming in, and all of a sudden the check goes to the patient instead of coming to me. And then you start calling them, and you start emailing them, and you start sending them letters, and they disappear. And then once you finally get through to them, they go, oh, I didn't know that was your money, right? All of a sudden they play dumb. Come on. So if the check goes to the patient, you have to have some way to prevent them from keeping the money. Here's a little simple tip. If you know the check may go to the patient, give the patient a few self-addressed stamped envelopes and say, hey, Mr. Jones, if you get anything from your insurance company regarding the services we render here in the office, put it in this envelope and mail it to us. Don't even wait for your next visit. Just put it in an envelope and send it to us. So that's Blue Cross Blue Shield out of network. And here's the sample laser procedure report I was referring to. If anybody would like a copy of this, I don't know if you can, read it really quick, and but the font might be too small. So if anybody would like, members, non-members of Target Coding listening to this webinar, if you'd like to get a copy of this procedure report for laser therapy, just send an email to amy@targetcoding.com, amy@targetcoding.com, and she will get you this sample procedure report. Okay, now we have a Medicare, right? Medicare patients need laser therapy. I think they need it more than most of the population. They're coming in with all kinds of joint pains and aches and osteoarthritis and discomfort and swelling and numbness. Anyway, so let's say you're a participating provider. As a chiropractor, you're a participating provider with Medicare. Can you collect money from the patient for the laser? Absolutely. You can collect your full fee. You should be collecting your full fee for the laser therapy. If you give it away for free, that could be a major problem. Do not give away anything for free, as far as I'm concerned. Chiropractors give away too many things for free. Do not give away the laser services for free. You must make an attempt to collect it. Also, if you're going to be doing, following my little outline here where we're doing an adjustment, therapeutic exercises, and laser. So for the laser and the therapeutic exercises, you need to collect the full fee from the Medicare patient for all the non-payable services. Remember, even if it's non-payable, you must attempt to collect it from the Medicare patient. If you don't, it could be considered an inducement, and that's a violation. You could have a problem. So if you're in network with, you're a participating provider with Medicare, then you're going to collect 20% of the chiropractic adjustment approved amount, right? You must accept assignment, and then for the laser or any other services, the patient pays in full. They should sign an ABN. When you're billing Medicare for the chiropractic adjustment services, remember you need to follow the Medicare guidelines. Members of Target Coding, you've received our recorded instant download video for the Medicare services for your state. Those of you that are not members of Target Coding, you can purchase that by going to targetcoding.com. We can get you the Medicare guidelines. That happens to be one of my areas of expertise, is Medicare billing, coding, and documentation for chiropractic and physical therapy. So collect the full fee. If the patient says, please bill Medicare, I need you to bill Medicare. Just for denial purposes, I recommend you use the 97039. For some reason, many Medicare carriers, when you send them a HICS code as a chiropractic office, they make it a provider liability, and the patient is not responsible. So you may have come across that if you ever tried to bill Medicare for orthotics to get the secondary carrier to pay. For some reason, Medicare is not processing them properly. Okay, next, Medicare is a non-participating provider. Okay, also, even though you're non-participating, you still must follow the Medicare guidelines for the chiropractic adjustments, for the laser and the therapeutic exercises. You're going to collect your full fee, have the patient sign an ABN form. As a non-par provider, you have the choice to accept assignment or not accept assignment for the chiropractic spinal manipulation. If you're going to bill for laser therapy, again, maybe to get the secondary to pay or just to satisfy the patient, put laser therapy in box 19 of the 1500 form, and you may want to send in that procedure report also that I sent you. And here, on the patient's first visit, whether you're par or non-par with Medicare, I would recommend you have the patient fill out the ABN form. First, you're going to fill out your portion of the ABN form. Up top, you're going to put your name, address, phone number, the patient's name, the ID number, leave blank. That's a recent update to the ABN form. A recent update came out where Medicare strongly recommends you do not, I repeat, do not put the patient's Medicare number in the identification number section. They want you to leave that blank or use your own internal number for the patient, like 1234, because, well, Medicare is doing this because they want to prevent medical identity theft. So much of that is going on now more than ever. I read that in all the fraud and alert bulletins that I receive from all over the country, Medicare identity theft. So the patient's Medicare number is typically their Social Security number. Most of the time, not all the time. So they don't want that on this form. So there, under the chiropractic non-payable service, put laser therapy. Laser therapy is not payable by Medicare. Many Medicare carriers have an LCD, a local coverage determination on laser therapy, just to tell you how to bill for denial purposes. Put down the estimated cost. You're going to, whatever it is, let's say $50, you must put down a fee for the laser, and then the patient has to choose an option box. Option 1 means they want the laser, but they also want you to bill Medicare just for denial purposes. Option 2 means that they want the laser therapy, but you don't have to bill Medicare, so I would prefer they check option 2. And option 3 means they don't want the service at all. Make sure the patient signs it and dates it. Okay, the next two categories, work comp. I've had quite a few clients get laser therapy approved through work comp. So the work comp rules, regulations in most states do not allow you to take money directly from the patient. So if you're going to bill work comp, don't expect to collect any money from the patient. You may want to put together a pre-certification letter. It's sort of a letter of medical necessity / pre-authorization letter. This is a letter, target coding members, you should all have this letter. Sorry, I cannot give this away if you are not a member of target coding. So this is the pre-authorization or pre-certification letter that we have created for workers' comp and for personal injury. So you should put together something like that. But remember, work comp rules, carriers, sometimes they bundle codes, limit services, limit fees. They require certain forms to be completed. They require your SOAP notes to be submitted with every claim. So check with your local state work comp board and get all the rules and regulations in writing prior to billing work comp. Next, personal injury. Okay, so patients in a car accident. Also, I've seen many PI carriers, State Farm, Allstate, Geico, Progressive pay for laser therapy. Remember, the rules and regulations in every state, are different. But most of the time, in most states, you can collect from the patient directly for the laser. If you can do that, great. Or if you want to choose to accept assignment, make sure that the patient understands all of your financial policy rules and regulations. Category 9. No insurance, cash, fantastic. You can collect the full fee for all of the services you render, for the laser, for the adjustment, for the exercises. As far as CPT codes go, when a cash patient comes in, you could take your CPT code book and throw it out the window. You don't need to know CPT codes for cash patients. That's only for insurance purposes. CPT coding is a language that's spoken between a provider and the insurance company. If there's no insurance involved, you don't need to use CPT codes unless you have to just to enter it into your computer for bookkeeping purposes. So if the patient's going to pay for multiple visits, just make sure it's okay. That's the prepay plans. Your fee for the laser should be the same for a cash patient versus an insurance patient. Now, you may be able to give them a little bit of a discount. I call it an administrative fee discount or a time of service fee. So we have a form for that too. So here, let me give you a little sample 12-visit financial care plan. Patient comes in, they get an exam, 75. Now remember, do not use these fees. This is a sample financial care plan for educational purposes. Do not use these fees. So, exam, 75. X-rays, 125. You do chiropractic adjustments, you charge $50 for each one, 12 visits. We're talking about the first month of care. That's 600. Laser therapy, $25 each. 12 visits, that's 300 for a total of 1100. That's for a month of care. So now, can you have the patient pay you up front for all of these services? Well, we went through all the 9 categories. So you don't want dual fees. You may be able to provide a small discount. Now, you may want to provide a deeper discount than just maybe 10 or 15%. That's where a discount medical plan organization needs to come into play, like Chiro Health USA. This is where you could have your normal fees. Let's say your normal fees to insurance is $150, and now a patient comes in, you want to do the same services and only charge $30. You can't do that unless you become a member of a company like Chiro Health USA. If anybody's interested in learning more about Chiro Health USA, send an email to amy@targetcoding.com. Next, prepay plans. This is where a patient pays in advance. Now, remember, having a patient pay in advance for certain services, it could violate your in-network agreement. And you definitely don't want to collect deductibles and coinsurance upfront from Medicare patients. When you collect a chunk of money from a patient in advance, you may need to put it in a separate account and withdraw the funds as the services are being recommended or received. As the services are being received. And again, Chiro Health USA could be a tremendous asset. So just a few closing comments, and then we're going to get to the questions and answers. You must check with all the carriers you bill prior to submitting claims based on the information provided in this presentation to ensure that it is compliant. Target Coding and LiteCure do not guarantee that the information in this presentation will guarantee payment from any insurance carrier or patient. Target Coding and LiteCure are not responsible for any insurance carrier or managed care organization laws, rules, and guidelines that may change following this presentation. Please understand that rules, laws, guidelines, regulations change. They change all the time, so it's important to stay on top of these changes by attending seminars, webinars like these, joining your national and state professional associations. All right, now we're going to get to the questions and answers. Let's see what has come in. Oh, before we get to questions and answers, let me tell you a little bit about a new program that we offer here at Target Coding. It's called our Smart Choice program. Our Smart Choice program will help you SWAN. I don't know if any of you have heard of SWAN. It's an acronym for Sleep Well at Night. So most of the doctors that we work with are not being audited. They're not being investigated. They work with us to prevent problems. So we're all about prevention. 20% of the doctors I work with, they've been audited, they've been investigated. I'm working with 2 doctors right now that were arrested, unfortunately, for insurance fraud. It could have been prevented easily if they had followed certain things that I recommend. Working with 2 doctors that had the U.S. Attorney's Office come into their office and seize their files and left, and working with the attorneys on that case. But that's rare. That's only about 20% of my business. 80% of my business, working with chiropractors and some physical therapists on preventing audits. So if you're smart, you know how to prevent fraud and audits. If you're smart, you'll know how to strategically build Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare. If you're smart, you should collect cash from many products and services, one of which is laser. If you're smart, you're not underbilling. You see, some doctors, they're so afraid of an audit that they're undercharging, and they're losing so much money. They're leaving so much money on the table. If you're smart, you know how to code to the highest level of specificity. If you're smart, you know how to prevent dual fee schedules. If you're smart, you have trained staff members to help you maximize revenue. If you're smart, you'll know when not to use modifiers 52 and 59, which cause red flags. If you're smart, you know how to bill for time codes properly. And if you're smart, you'll consider our Smart Choice program. Again, it'll help you sleep well at night. This is not an annual contract. This is an evaluation of your practice. We ask you to send us a few things. some CPT codes, HCPCS codes, your notes, treatment plans, intake forms, HIPAA forms, EOBs. I will do the quick analysis. I will do the evaluation, and then I will have 2 or 3 conference calls with you. Those conference calls could be spread out over 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 weeks. After 2 or 3, maybe 4 conference calls, you're done. At that point, you will know what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and then you're on your own. So it's not an annual contract. So if you want more information on our Smart Choice program, contact Amy at, again, Amy, A-M-Y, at targetcoding.com, or you could just go to the Target Coding website and click on the services page, and you'll see the information about our Smart Choice program. All right, now let's take a look at the questions that have come in. First question, will we receive a copy of this webinar? Target Coding members, yes. Target Coding members and clients of LiteCure can receive these slides. Next question, what is the ICD-9 code? Oh, okay, so I guess when I mentioned the ICD-10 codes for carpal tunnel, somebody would like the ICD-9 code for carpal tunnel syndrome. That's 354.0. Next question. Jason, you there?
I am here. Yes.
Okay, so here, this one's for you. The support, if somebody buys a LiteCure laser, is it unlimited support for forever? Can they call and ask, it looks like they want to know about unlimited support on protocols.
Oh, right. Yeah, the clinical support is maintained, throughout the ownership of the laser. So, I'm taking calls all the time. We have several resources available as well. So yeah, that doesn't end, at 30 days or a year or 2 years. We've got great relationships with some of our original users that still call in from time to time.
Okay. Next question. Have you heard any restrictions about massage therapists using laser? Well, there are, in some states, massage therapists are allowed to use laser. In some states, they're not licensed to be able to use it. So that's a state-specific question. Please check with the Massage Therapy Board in your state about massage therapists using laser. But most states, I think it is applicable. Okay, yes, somebody's asking for the now somebody sent in their email. If you would like the research articles that I mentioned, please send an email to amy@targetcoding.com. When you send in your questions requesting the lasers, when I close this webinar, I lose all the questions. So please just send your email to Amy if you would like those laser articles. Next, are PTs using this therapy? Yes, many physical therapists that I know use laser therapy. Jason, what do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Physical therapists are using it. Not a question. They're one of the biggest groups. Physical therapists, athletic trainers, chiropractors, veterinarians. It's really becoming widely used technology.
Yeah, I know acupuncturists. I know some medical doctors that are using laser therapy. So, next question. The different lasers out there, do they have different protocols for neck pain, carpal tunnel, etc.? Jason, want to take that one?
Well, I think by nature of the devices that are out there, all devices aren't capable of delivering the exact same types of therapy, so they will typically have different recommended protocols. Generally speaking, as I mentioned earlier, the World Association of Laser Therapy has settled on some pretty standard dosing criteria. And then once you get beyond that, there are, people, I think with a lot of devices, some manufacturers feel like they have to put their own spin on some things. So there are ribbons and bows attached to a lot of these protocols, but the fundamental technology should be very similar.
Okay. Next, what is your professional recommendation for which laser we should consider for our office? Well, LiteCure Medical's LiteForce laser is the one I recommend right now. I don't recommend any others, so I strongly recommend whoever sent in that question to contact LiteCure. Jason, if somebody's interested in a light force therapy laser, is there a number, an email? How could they get in touch
Sure.
with you guys?
All of the above. There's the website is really a fantastic resource. It's LiteForce Lasers. There's no space or dash or dot or anything. LiteForceLasers.com. If they want to call into the office, the number here, give everybody a second to get their pen, is area code 302-709-0408. And then they can also email, send an email to info@litecure.com, and that's LITECURE. So any of those methods, you'll get a response very quickly, and we can help people out with any of the information or quotes they'll need.
Again, that was 302-709-0408. Email info@litecure.com, LITECURE.com. All right, next question. Do you have documentation we can use to fight denials for experimental therapy we get? Yes, but you would need to be a member of Target Coding to get that information. Also, what is Medicare's stance on billing 97026 for a chiropractor or a physical occupational therapist? Well, 97026 is not laser. That's infrared, so I would not recommend using that code for laser therapy. Next, what was the number of patients studied? Doc, whoever sent in that question, I'm not sure. Jason, would you know how to answer that?
Yeah.
What was the number of patients studied?
Yeah, sometimes that question comes in related to some of those meta-analyses, and it really depends. You know, study to study, they're obviously variable. But one of the criticisms in laser has often been, especially from the payers, has been that the studies are relatively small. The meta-analyses, and this is just off the top of my head, I think the neck pain study had something on the order of 400 to 430 patients. A couple of the systemic reviews and meta-analyses done on tendinopathies are up in the 800 and 900 patient ranges. So the studies are getting much more substantial in size, and you know, as you pool them together, the results become very compelling. But those are the numbers just off the top of my head. And if anybody wants more specific information, or I was going to mention as well, you mentioned the studies that you had talked about being available if you send the email to you guys at Target Coding. If anybody's interested in the studies that I mentioned in my portion of the talk, they can use any of those LiteCure contact methods, and we can gladly share those studies as well.
Great. So if anybody would like to see the studies that Jason was referring to, send an email to info@litecure.com. That's LITECURE.com. Next question, what does the patient feel during the treatment? I've had many laser therapy sessions. I don't feel anything. Jason?
So it will depend on the dose that you're getting or the incident energy on the surface. But typically with our lasers, and one of the things that the patients really enjoy is there's generally speaking, a soothing warmth. So you're putting, you know, up to 10, maybe 15 watts of energy on a spot that, you know, most of the time is going to be 3 or 4 centimeters across or smaller. So that's going to, you know, you're definitely going to get a little bit of a warming sensation. Now we do also have a laser massage applicator. So in that case, they're going to be getting some soft tissue work at the same time, right? So you've got a massage ball that's going to be rolling across. Usually we use it in muscular areas. And typically that ball is actually going to be room temperature, so it'll feel almost a little cool to the patient, but they'll be getting that mechanical sensation. So they're going to be getting one of the two. So that's, you know, and it's difficult because, you know, with patients, when they don't feel something when they're getting the treatment, sometimes they resist or you know, like you said in the question there, they're not sure what's going on. I think right out of the gate, the patients that get these laser treatments with the LiteForce lasers, they're definitely feeling something immediately.
All right, Jason, how are you on time? Can you keep going?
Yeah,
Okay,
we'd
because
be
I
glad to
didn't
answer
realize
your
how
questions.
many questions. I just took a peek. There's a whole bunch of other questions. So I just want to let everybody know we've gone over. I understand if you have to go. Thank you for attending this webinar. I really appreciate you guys joining in and listening in. And we have a whole bunch of other questions. I'm going to keep going. I want to get to everybody's questions. So I don't want to, cut you short. If you have to leave, I understand. But if somebody sent in a question, hang in there. I would like to answer every single question that has come in. I wasn't expecting to see so many, so if you have to go, I understand. If I don't get to your question for whatever reason, you hang up, then email your question to info@targetcoding.com. You can also um, call us at 1-800-270-7044, and the website is targetcoding.com. If you send a question to info@targetcoding.com and it's more clinical and more related to LiteCure, I'm going to forward the question over to Jason, and then he will answer it for you. So everyone hang in there. We're going to keep going with the questions.